Like we are live now. Make sure everything's set up properly.
How do we look?
Fine.
Look good? Are we looking good?
Mhm.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast, episode 37.
You go and bring it up on the thing so we
Well,
can take a look
I
at it.
needed to send it to me.
Huh?
I need to send it to me.
Send it to you? How do I send it to you?
Well, it's supposed to update me.
What's up, guys? So we'll go ahead and get everything pulled up here in just a second, and then we'll get started. And I'll, as you guys come into the room, the chat room. So I sound old.
Ooh.
Into the podcast, the live podcast. We'll get started, and I'll start with a little bit of a ramble today, which I'm going to share with you guys and talk about curing your training rut. And this is kind of coming from my current experience right now with training. Again, I've been going for about at this point about 16 years, so I've had a couple years of training. So if this is working for me right now, I'm sure it'll work for you guys. As you guys come in, just let us know where you're coming from, and as we get started. So,
Boom. We're there.
boom. All right. Where's his phone's up there? So
Your
cool.
phone. Yeah, can you guys hear us okay? Just let us know.
Yeah, so we'll wait till everybody starts to kind of get into the room, and then if you guys hear us, just let us know, and let us know where you're coming from. So we'll kind of wait until everybody starts to pull in, and then we'll get going.
Chewy, another week, man. Another week down.
I like that I forgot the G on cleaning. Spring cleaning.
Cure your BJ training rut with spring cleaning. Cleaning.
Cleaning. That's that country. name.
That's all right.
But
Oh,
yeah,
sounds good. Thank you, sir. We
Yeah.
have worked hard.
yeah. When we first started doing this thing, the sound was terrible. And,
So yeah,
it
like
sounded like we were talking in
Chewy was like the
can.
supportive partner, because this is kind of not really my first rodeo, but kind of a second rodeo, so to speak.
You don't deal well with people ragging on.
No, I just I always don't want to half-ass anything. I want something to be enjoyable to people, and like when it's not perfect, it irritates me.
Yeah, well, the thing is like things now, like the quality of it has to be better because I mean,
Right.
You think of now like when you listen to a podcast, like I was saying about this the other day, I was listening to a history podcast,
Yeah.
and they had literally one of my favorite authors on, and I was so excited to listen to it. And then when he was on there, it was like he was talking in a tin can, and I couldn't listen to it. So totally understand.
We've been there, done that.
What's up, guys? We got some people on. See, we got someone from Maine. We got someone from sunny Ireland. Is it sunny in Ireland? I've never been to Ireland,
Sunny Ireland,
but I know
does it rain a lot?
I thought it rained a lot, right? Because England, in Britain, it rains a ton.
Yeah,
In Australia, it's definitely sunny in Australia.
that's a thing.
Yeah. So, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the ramble, and then afterwards, Eugene, we'll probably it's pissing rain. Eugene and I will kind of probably talk a bit about it, and then afterwards we'll do a little bit of Q&A with you guys. So, recently I had a little bit of an injury, nothing too crazy. It was just it was a small little thing. I was training one Wednesday night, and we had some good training. I remember it was a tough session. It was one of those sessions where afterwards, like there was literally like pools of sweat sitting on the mat, which for me that's a good night. There's tons of sweat everywhere, and everybody got pushed hard, and everybody collectively was done. The training session was over. We did our cool down stretch, and we were all just wiped. Well, the next morning I woke up and man, my knee was like kind of swollen. It didn't feel too hot. I was like, what the hell's going on? There was some instability there and some tenderness and tightness. And so when that happened, I'm not dumb. I've been around this before. So what I said is like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to take a couple days off. Couple days turned into about 2.5 weeks because I was waiting for that inflammation to go down. I was waiting for the pain and sort of it was probably something with my meniscus. I was waiting for all that to kind of get out of the way. And during that time period, the only thing that I did was lift. I lifted weights because I could lift weights. And I did a little bit of rehab exercises for my knee. And then afterwards, I just did yoga. I did yoga every single day. So sometimes I would go to the actual yoga studio and do it. And sometimes I would just do it at home. Or sometimes I'd do it in the gym. So I would do all that. That would be what I did, lifting and yoga every single day. And during this time period, I was kind of at a point where I was like, man, when I come back, where do I want my game to go? Because again, there's these points in your game where obviously if you have really glaring like gaps and hold problems, then you obviously know what you need to work on. But there's also these time periods, which I think most of you that have been training for some length of time, you'll relate to, which is, things are all right. I don't necessarily need to work on something in particular, but I know I need to improve. So where do I go, right? And with the multitude of information, the myriad of information that we have at our fingertips, it's really hard sometimes to just narrow down on something. It's because there's just so much stuff. It's where do you want to go? And so for me, I was like, okay, I want to pinpoint something I want to work on. So, I already play half guard, but I wanted to test out some new half guard sweeps that I was thinking about. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on my half guard a bit, see if I can develop these sweeps a little bit. And then afterwards, there's a back position. And this came about because I was teaching a back mount seminar up in Ohio, and I was like, man, there's a position from back mount that I know how to play that I don't really play as much as I should, I think, because it's not something I've ever seen anyone really go down the rabbit hole with. I use it, but I don't know anyone else that uses it to any great length. And so I was like, I really want to develop this position. And part of the reason why is because I like sharing it with people. So, if I can develop it for myself, I can share it with my students, and share it with you guys. And so I've been back for a little over a week now, and I've been having an absolute blast because one, I've had time to stretch, and I'll tell you what, the yoga every single day was pretty nice because while I was injured, I was doing yoga every day. My body feels so much better. My hips are looser and everything else. So I think I might continue just taking a week off from time to time and just stretch, and let everything sort of relax. I tend to do that anyway, but probably make it more of a regular thing. Just take a week off from time to time and stretch. And then on top of that, I'm back on the mat and I'm having a blast. I'm like, because I'm focused. And what I thought about it was, it's kind of getting to that, into that time of the year. It's almost spring. And I know that everybody kind of goes through a little bit of cleaning. You kind of start to clear things out, spring cleaning, so to speak. And I thought about the analogy because I don't know if you guys have ever done, if you've ever gone into a room that's really cluttery and messy, it can almost kind of make you feel anxious or irritable or just, it's not a calming effect. Where if you go into your room and maybe the bed's made and everything's nice and neat in its place, it's very calming. And even if you do something where maybe you have a situation like Eugene where he's a PT and he has all these different tools, or if you do something where you have maybe you're a mechanic and you have tools, or maybe you just have a bunch of things that you have, and if you have them all neat and organized, if you have to find the thing that you're looking for, it's easy to find it because it's all organized. It's put into its place. It's nice and neat, and there's less clutter because you've cleaned everything out. And so it's the same thing with your game because when you clear out that clutter, it's easier to find what you're looking for. Meaning, if you say, listen, there are hundreds and thousands of techniques that I could focus on, but what I'm going to focus on are these. And then you take the rest of that stuff and you put it in the drawer and sort of store it away for later. You can always go back to it later, but for right now, we're going to focus on this. You're then staring at just these options, and that helps you bring focus to your game. And when you have that focus, it allows you to have a lot more direction. And then when you're rolling for stuff, you're not missing the opportunities to make those things happen because, a lot of times there can be an almost paralysis analysis when you're rolling because it's like there's so many moves. What do you want to use? I don't know. There's so many to choose from. Whereas when you pinpoint one or two things or a position that you want to use, it allows you to really zero in on just those options. And for me, when I do this, when I put that focus on my game, I start to get really creative because since I'm limiting myself to a position or a technique, then it becomes, well, how can I get to that position? How can I get to that technique? And, if they start defending that technique because they're probably going to pick up, the pattern of what I'm going for, well, then how can I disguise it? I did some neat stuff this morning that I just sort of cooked up on the fly. And so that idea of cleaning out your game, right? So when you get to those points in your training, and I call it training ruts, where you maybe are getting kind of demotivated, you're getting kind of in a rut where you feel like you go in the gym and you're just doing the same old thing every single day. One of the cool things that you could do is treat it as if you have a big cluttery desk. Take the stuff that you don't need, put it in the drawer, store it up nicely. You can always come back to it later and then zero in on just the things that you want to focus on now. And then giving yourself that focus, that clarity of what you're going to be working towards, it helps so much. This helps in anything, in the business that I have with my buddy Joe. We literally sit down some days and we'll hammer out, just brainstorm a ton of ideas. And they're all good ideas. But him and I both know, okay, million good ideas means nothing. Which ones can we actually execute and implement? And so then what we'll do is which one do we actually want to do right now? And we'll focus on just that one. And having that clarity of focus and purpose helps out so much. And you can do that with your game because a lot of times I think that whenever I talk to students where they get into a rut, it comes not from a lack of information or anything like that. It's usually just because they get stuck in a rhythmic pattern where they're doing the same thing over and over again. And so often I tell them, just go a different direction. Find something you're kind of enthusiastic about right now. Find something that you think would be kind of cool to do, and then just go that direction for a while and just see what happens. And, just changing things up can be really motivating. And then again, having a clarity of purpose with anything in your life, when you know clearly what you're going for, is motivating. I think that's one of the reasons why tournaments can be so motivating, because a lot of times it causes people to zero in on their best stuff, right? Their best game plan that they can use for the competition. And then because they have that thing coming up, they have clarity of focus and purpose. They know what they're shooting for. They know what they're getting ready for, rather than being in this kind of limbo stage where you're just training because you're training, right? You know why you're training. And so sometimes what you can do is you can do that by clearing out the clutter and then focusing on just one thing. Do a little spring cleaning in your game and then focus on that one thing. And a lot of times that'll help out by giving you that focus. And to me, it helps out with my desire for training, because I'm excited to get to the gym, because I'm like, okay, let's see if I can hit that technique. Let me see if I can hit that position that I was working on today, that kind of thing. So that's been helpful for me. That's something that I do regularly. And I find it really motivating, just taking a little bit of time off, seeing where I want to go, and then coming back and getting after it. So hope that's helpful to you guys too. So
awesome. Yeah. So Chewy, just a little bit more on that. When you're choosing something to work on, how much time do you give it? And do you set any kind of like goals, like I want to hit this many times at the gym, or get into the position a certain number of times? Like how long do you want to spend on that position or that specific task?
I would say at least a month. For some magic to time, just giving yourself a little bit more time to do that position, that technique. And you can even sometimes break it up, where I've done this before, where I have something specific I'm working in no gi, and I have something different I'm working in gi. So you can sometimes do it like that, where, every day you go on the mat, it's not going to be the same. So you don't get bored, because again, that can be boring, just doing the same old things. Not always. But I would say at least a month. Just give it a month, give it a fair shake, and let's see what happens. And one of the neat things is that jiu-jitsu is incredibly hard to measure, as far as when someone says, am I getting better?
Right.
That's such a hard question to answer, because it's such a relative thing. Are you getting better? I don't know, maybe. But when you focus on something, it becomes very apparent. Am I getting better? So for instance, let's say that you're rolling and you have this situation where you're like, man, I can take the back every single time, but for some reason I can't choke anyone. Well, then if you say my goal is just to do the choke, well then, like when you go into the gym on Monday, you go in, you don't choke anyone. You take their backs, but you don't choke anyone. Then you come in again on Wednesday and you get one choke. You can I'll be like, oh, I hit a choke. That means I got better. Like I actually hit the technique that I was doing successfully. Or it could be a sweep, it could be a guard pass, it could be whatever you want it to be. But basically you can pick these techniques, and when you hammer down on one technique, you'll start to get a feeling of efficiency, a feeling of, of ease with the technique as you get better and better with it. And you'll know that you're getting better, because you'll just know, because you focus on just that one thing or that one position or those one techniques or whatever it is. And it could be a group of techniques, but you'll start to get a certain level of just, it's an intuitive thing, and for me, I don't like to go down this route of like, you have to do it this way or that. Like, you just get a feeling, and you know that you're getting better with the technique, because it becomes like smooth. And that smoothness a lot of times is something where you're like, yeah, that move feels good. And you're getting better at it. And if you want to measure it and be that kind of person, you can be like, well, I hit it, 3 times on this guy last night, when I hit it 6 times this night, so you're like, I can see that I'm getting better to some degree. Now, the one thing you have to do with that is you also have to be careful, because sometimes people will equate getting worse. If, so let's say you come into the gym on Monday, you hit it 3 times, and then, Wednesday you come in and you hit it once. That doesn't mean you're getting worse. That means that they might be getting wise to what you're doing.
Right.
And now we have to kind of go through the dance of where, okay, they're getting smart to what I'm doing, and I'm going to have to be even more creative. And you also have to take into factors like, are you wore out? Did you eat really well today? Did you get enough rest the night before? All those factors play into it. You know what I mean? So, sometimes having a good training session is like a perfect storm. Good sleep, good food, nice, enough time to rest between sessions, all those different things.
No, yeah, you mentioned that, and then you mentioned something about tournaments. That's a great way to get you to focus, or kind of build a little bit of motivation too, because you have something to kind of work towards and sharpen your game too. So that's a great point.
We have clarity.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have more of a purpose to your training.
Purpose is huge. This is why so many people, they have like, they have a gap in their life missing, right? Because they don't have purpose for what they're doing. I'm not talking about like, I'm talking about a deep resonating purpose. That's something that we all desire. And so when you get into a competition, if jiu-jitsu is kind of important to you, that's something that resonates with you deeply. Even though it's a game, and even though like on the, like we're in the reality of it all, like it doesn't matter who wins and who's loses. Like it doesn't change anything really, right? But the fact that it means so much to you, it's meaningful, gives you a deep sense of purpose and drive to get that thing done.
Right.
And anytime you can add a deep sense of purpose into your game, or into your life in any place, that's going to be motivating, whether it's with your life, your relationships, your training, anything.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a helpful thing.
No, that makes sense. And I think when you're maybe an upper belt or even a lower belt, it can be a little bit hard to step back and work on a different part of your game because there's, like always talk about the ego.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I'm a blue belt. I'm finally getting good at a certain aspect of my game. I'm doing well. I'm winning roles, whatever that means. And I want to keep doing that. Yeah. And then when you're an upper belt, it could be like, well, I am dominating over these people. And if I start trying new stuff, then maybe a lower belt might put me in bad positions or might not do as well. So then you have that ego thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that, definitely in my head, that's something that has at times hindered me from branching out a little bit in some other positions.
I think I was listening to something the other night, and they talked about the fact that the sort of the Hercules complex, is something that men have, right? Where you have this feeling that life is not something to be felt or experienced; it's something to overcome, right? Like instead of like when we fail. And you go into failure is an inevitability. You're going to fail at stuff. There is no way around it. It's supposed to happen. You go down, right? In today's culture, and it's been like this for a long time, we resist that going down. We resist that process. It's a friggin' process. It's nature, man. Like the seasons change, things die and come back, right? It's the night and the day, the up and the down. But we resist that process. We always want to be going. We always want to be winning and hustling, getting after it, whatever it is, whatever you talk about. And there's this Herculean complex where, men feel like everything is about overcoming. We're not living our life to experience and to feel and to absorb everything that is. It's to simply it's this big obstacle to overcome. And you miss the whole damn thing. It's interesting, the story that the guy went to talk about. I'll be short about this because it was a longer story, but there was a mythological story that the guy shared in this particular audio program, and it was about a guy where it was talking about going into the descent. And so this guy was, the short of it is that the guy went down and he was told to do a job. For 7 years, he had to chop wood and put this wood under these kettles to keep them burning. And he wasn't allowed to cut his hair or trim his nails or nothing like that. He just had to just chop this wood and put it under there. And at the end of the 7 years, he would be paid. And then he was told that he was supposed to take all the wood chips and the wood shavings that were falling off as he was chopping the wood, sweep them behind the door. And so what ended up happening is at the end of the 7 years, the guy comes back down and he's like, all right, so do I get my pay now? He's like, sure. And he takes his sack and he takes all the wood shavings and he throws them in and says, here you go. And the guy's, like, what the shit? Like, you gave me all these wood chips, man. I don't want these wood chips. It's garbage, right? Well, then he comes up, and when he goes back up, right? He comes up out of the down. He comes up out of the underworld. He goes up. When he comes back up to the regular world, the wood shavings, the wood chips, the garbage is turned into gold. It turns into gold when he gets up to the regular world. And the idea is that there's a whole mythological thing there, but when he was in the descent, right, he's dealing with all this stuff, and there's a whole thing about it, but that as he's dealing with all that stuff, right, the wood chips, the wood chunks, the garbage essentially that he sweeps behind the door. The sort of the symbology of that is, right, like symbolism behind that is it's the stuff where if it's a door, when the door is open and people can see you, they can't see your garbage. But when the door's closed, it's there. You can see it. You know where it is.
Yeah.
And when you take that stuff back up, it turns into something. Right, turns into something special. It's your gold, right? Like those are the things that change you. The things that really change you in your life, think about it. Like a lot of times they're not the best situations. It's the stuff that makes you friggin' stressed out. It's the stuff that pushes you. Those are the things that typically end up creating you and making you go in different directions. It's usually not the good stuff, right? Like what's going to make you fired up about changing something in your game because you got stuck with something, because you got caught.
Yeah.
You know, because you went to a tournament and you got smashed.
Yep.
You know, what's going to fire you up about like, you know, doing something with your business because something's not going so well, right? I know that for us, like me and Joe, some of our best business decisions came off the back of some of the most stressful things I've ever experienced in my life. And, you know, I think about even, you know, with some of my best jiu-jitsu jumps all came about not because of good things were going, it was bad stuff. I got caught in positions. I experienced losses. I did stuff that I didn't like. And because of that, I was fired up. I was going in the down. I was fired up to get back going up. And so you have to deal with that stuff. And so I think that sometimes with people with the ego thing, it's like, that's silly. It's like you have to be willing to go down, and it's going to happen. The reality is it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. It might be just a good idea to go into it yourself, like manually create. It's like, so listen, I'm going to try some new stuff. I know this is going to screw up. Or, you know, even with your business, you know, you guys are in business too, right? And I'm in business. So you can say, listen, I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to do this thing. I know it's going to be tough. I know I'm going to hit some roadblocks, but I'm going to do it. Let's do it. Let's go in the down because we'll end up somewhere eventually afterwards.
Yeah. It's hard to be in the down, but you need it. It's necessary for the ups, of course. So, well, good.
You just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice.
You're
it's
right.
going to happen.
You're right.
Like as much as like, you know, there's people on social media and they're all these fucking fakers and stuff. And like, they try to act like they've got all this shit figured out.
Yeah.
Anybody that tries to act like that, it's like everybody's always improving. There's always going to be downs. It's all right. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Like you're supposed to have the downs. And as much as you try to resist them in any aspect of life, you're going to have them. So you can choose to resist it, or you can choose to go with it and take out what you can from it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like going with the flow a little bit. You know, going with the wave, like you're riding a wave, so to speak. You know, it's definitely probably easier to your instinct is to resist that dip. You want to resist, you want to stop, but sometimes going with it, you know, can help the ascend.
Well, I think about it like this. If we want to talk about this, because we're obviously doing a podcast mostly about jiu-jitsu. If I think about jiu-jitsu, I had this down that I stayed in for a long time. So my guard passing game I've always been a head forward guard passer, like to put that pressure on. And early on, I used to get caught in triangles all the time. I remember when I would get caught in a triangle, I would go down because I'd feel so bummed out about it. Now, I would resist it because I would be like, okay, no, I'm just going to like get back to training and I'm going to go back to what feels good. I'm going to go back to doing all the stuff that like makes me feel good when I go to training. And it wasn't until I was a purple belt that I remember my coach, Colin, he stuck me in the triangle position for like 1 month or something, where every time I started a round, I was starting in someone's legs in a triangle, in a like loosely locked triangle. So basically all I had to do was pull my head down and lock the thing up and I was choked. For 1 month, it didn't matter what we were, I started in that. And then that was where I finally got out of that. So I spent a whole month pissed every day I'd go to class. I was so frustrated because I was getting choked constantly. I was coughing and everything else. But by the end of that month, it was hard to choke me with a triangle.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is where like I was able to roll with guys like Rich and Chad and things like that and not immediately get sucked up into a triangle constantly. So I prolonged that. I resisted that down for a long time, and I got caught in triangle after triangle after triangle from white to purple belt. And then once I just said, you know what? Well, I didn't say it. My coach manually made me do it. But once I went down in there and faced it, well, then I came up out of it, and I was better for it. And so you've got to be willing to go with it. And those things that are challenging, the things that are uncomfortable, the things that kind of frustrate you got to go with them. Like you said, don't resist them. Move with them and figure out what you can extract from them to help you later.
Yeah, that's a great humbling experience. And also, if you choose to do that yourself, like positions, sometimes like I play a knee shield, and people stand up. They create that distance, and then it makes it really hard for me, with guard retention or attacking, things like that. So I put myself in that situation. Not on purpose, but I find myself there, and with certain people, I make it a point to try to roll with certain people that put me in that situation, and make me really work, to get better at that. So that's a great point, Chewy. Let's say thank you to Michael Heron for.
Thank you, Michael. I got on
super chat.
I got going there for a minute, so I just saw that you posted a thing. So
let's take some questions.
So yeah, guys, we'll do a little Q&A today. So throw your questions out, and we'll do this thing.
There were a couple people that said they were really inspired, like Drew Barry.
Drew Barry, what's up, brother?
Your videos changed my life. Thank you. That's awesome. That's powerful stuff.
Drew, if you're here, when you say changed your life, what do you mean? How do you mean that? I'm curious.
A lot of people saying valuable. So here you go, Chewy. So Bedoya Productions said, Chewy, why am I so damn shy walking into a new gym?
Mm, man, everybody's kind of shy. You're walking into a, honestly, I'll tell you this, but Bedoya, if someone comes into the gym and they're loud and like super outgoing, like overly so, sometimes I I'm leery of them, right? Like when I see people come in, most people come in and they try to sort of feel out the surroundings and they sort of see what's going on and try to see, what's happening. Like, okay, how is this gym? How do people act? And whenever you go into a situation, I think we all do it as humans. When we go into haven't been in before, we want to feel like, okay, like, all right, I know what it's like to be normal in my other environments. What is it like to be in this one? And because you don't want to go in there and act a certain way, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, like they don't like this kind of behavior or whatever. So you want to kind of like make sure you know what you're dealing with, and then slowly you open up. I think that's pretty normal. I don't think that that's. I don't know when you say shy. I don't know. Or I don't know how you mean by shy, but I imagine that when you go into a gym, just slowly sort of getting to know people, and then that's more of a normal sort of progression. I think it would be more strange if you went into a gym and just immediately started acting years. That would be more strange to me because like people are going to look at you and say, well, who's this guy? I don't know you. Whereas if you kind of come in and you slowly let the relationships develop organically.
Yeah, I think as a student coming into a new gym, myself being in another gym, and you just try to assimilate. You just try to listen, to whatever the instructor is saying. Try to be a good training partner, and then people get to know you because they'll maybe enjoy working with you and training with you.
Right.
So that's an easy way. All right. Somebody said something about me putting the remote away. Chewy, I want you to choke me out. It's from Nolan.
Well, I'm not going to choke unconscious. If you want to get caught with a choke, you can come roll with me. I'm down here at Louisville, Kentucky, Derby City Mixed Martial Arts. You can come roll, and I'll have no problem putting you in a back mount and putting a choke on you. It's my favorite position.
Yeah, it's not fun. I've been choked plenty of times.
It's not that bad.
You're pretty nice about it. Sometimes you get a little brutal. What about this one? Matt Reynolds.
I've been working on takedowns for Matt Reynolds. I've been working on takedowns. Should I stick with people my size or does it matter? I just find it affects results of said takedown. So, Matt, here's what you can think about. I think that initially it's a little bit easier to do takedowns with people of the same size or a little bit smaller. Although you can do takedowns on bigger people, just the takedowns that you're going to do might change. So, for instance, against someone of my same size, I might shoot a double leg, like a blast double. I'm not going to shoot a blast double against a person that's super big. I'm typically going to shoot singles because the person, like to shoot like a blast double means I've got to really have a lot of power behind me, which I have power, but it's one of those things where if I'm moving up to a person that's much bigger, it's going to be tough. So for instance, like at the Nogi Pans this past year, I went in there and I went to the ultra heavyweight class. I didn't want to cut any weight, and one of my buddies, actually, it wasn't even a weight thing. My buddy, Nick Sanders, we were training, him and me and a few guys down there at Cal for the Nogi Pans, and we were training. I didn't even realize that he was in the same weight class as me, so when I figured that out, he had already signed. I was like, man, I don't want to go against Nick, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go up and screw with it. Let's go up to ultra heavy and have some fun. And my first opponent, outweighed me by about 30, 40 pounds. And I'm not going to shoot a double on him. I shot a single and took him down. It's the same stuff. I share this with you guys, like in some of the videos online on the YouTube channel. It's the same takedowns that I use in like my jiu-jitsu video series that I have on my website. But it's just you change the basically the tool that you're going to use. Meaning, if you have a situation where you need a hammer, okay, well, then you hammer the nail in. But sometimes it's a screw, so you need a screwdriver. If I'm rolling against a guy who's got really bendy, flexible legs, I don't like passing standing. I like to get really low up under their hips and lock them up. If it's a slower person that's playing a little bit of a half guard, I'll do standing passing so I can stand out of their half guard. So again, just like that, when you're rolling with people and doing the takedowns, you may not shoot the same style of takedown. You're going to have to adjust depending on the size, the speed, the way their factors play into it. But I hope that's helpful to you, brother.
All right. Let's see. New blue belt. Should you stay the course or focus on? I think that was it. Hold on. I saw it somewhere.
The one right there?
Yeah, look at that one. It's Trent.
So we got a question from Trent. Says, as a brand spanking new blue belt, should I have a plan when I roll? For example, concentrate on working escapes or a specific technical shit or back up. I can't see it.
Sorry.
Or just experiment with techniques. With any place, again, this isn't just as like, blue belt, white belt or anything. It's where do you want to go? Or are you having a big problem in your game? So I always kind of ask, this question myself. Is there a glaring hole in my game, or is there an area I feel like I'm weak at? Or is there a place that I feel like I can improve? Or is this just a direction I want to go? Ask yourself that question. As a blue belt, again, I call it the buffet belt because it's that point where you have the basics under you and then you can start to play. You can start to sample everything. You have the jiu-jitsu to the point where if you watch a video or if your coach shows a technique, you can pretty rapid movements and you can understand what you're doing. And so at that point, to me, it's about testing the waters. This way, as a blue belt, you can sort of sample the line and see the things that you like, the things that you don't like. And then afterwards, you can, kind of go out there and start to specialize. And specializing is going to be the sort of the ticket to purple belt. At least I think this is my sort of philosophy on it. So I think as a blue belt, I would suggest you line, and again, it's hard sometimes during a role with someone who's like of the same skill level or higher. People tend to revert back to their best stuff. But then when you roll with maybe someone who's a little bit less skilled than you, that would be a great opportunity to sort of use the things that are kind of on the back burner. You're sort of like, it's your research and development, right? The new weapons that are kind of, they need some testing. Put those in those go against those newer white belts, the guys that are a little bit weaker than you or less skilled, and then up against the guys that are like of the same skill level where you're going to need your good firepower, then you use your normal stuff. But that's the way that I personally like to do, and that's the way I encourage people to do it. And I think you can follow that sort of that pattern, for a long time. Even as you get to like a black belt, you can still test new things out with, different people, and then you can still use your A game if you need it.
Yeah, that's actually a big way that I've done stuff too. I have like an A game and a B game. So this is my B game, not as strong. I'm going to work on that or focus on getting those positions more because you don't want to just fucking smash people. Like if you're going against a white belt and all you're doing is like crushing with your best game, like say you're being heavy on top or something. I mean, it's not fun for anybody because they don't get any work in and you don't really improve because you're playing your game and you're not getting much resistance.
Right. I mean, there's a time like for instance, if you're doing some hardcore competition training and that white belt needs to be smashed because they need to know what it feels like, that's fine. But, during a day-to-day training session, I think it's so much more valuable to say like, okay, I'm going to do something very specific with this person because at any point I can end it. I can get into a good position. So by playing some different stuff, trying some new weapons, you allow yourself to play a bit, which is nice because then, you're not in the same situation. Like if I go with I feel compelled to use my best stuff because if I make a mistake, I'm going to pay for it. Right. And again, it's just the way it is. And then when you go against someone like if I go against like a blue belt, I can make mistakes, and if it doesn't go well, I can always find my way back out of it. It's no big deal. I can always, get back to where I need to be. I can always get in good position. So it allows you to play a lot more relaxed. And to me, when you're in that more relaxed setting, that's the best mindset for learning, right? When you're in a more stressed out, go get a focused mindset, that's good for executing whatever you already know. But if you're in that mindset, motor patterns and do new things, it's best if you're relaxed because if your mind is in a relaxed state, it's in a far more resourceful state. You can just think about when you're really stressed out, it's really hard to think about it's information. But when you're just kind of relaxing sometimes you'll have your best thinking moments when you're in the shower, you're laying in the bed in the morning, you're just like nothing's came at you yet and you're just, that's a good idea. It is because your mind's in a relaxed state and it can open up more easily. And this is not just anecdotal. This is stuff where they do stuff where, the brain and the stress response and all that stuff and how that plays a role into the way that we're able to access information.
I always say that like I like flow rolling and somebody at the same skill level that is good at flow rolling just because they're going to let you work and you're going to let them work. And then you're going to figure out sometimes you get stuck in a position. And then because you're going light, you're going slower, you can kind of figure out, oh, wait, I'm stuck here. What do I need to do? And you may reposition or figure it out or even stop the roll. They may give you some advice on, oh, put your hand here, position this way. So that's flow rolling has always been really great.
I think flow rolling
for developing.
I think it's a good warm up.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think it's a good warm up, just to kind of move around a little bit and just kind of in a sort of
get your mind in the right
it's
kind of
an
space
exchanging manner,
Yeah. This is actually a funny question.
Which one?
There's always videos out there. Gears and Games says, Chewy, do you ever see how-to technique clips and think this is cool and flashy, but no way would it work against a struggling opponent? So what do you do? So what if like a student comes in and then Chewy, I'm gonna try this new move?
Okay, so if someone brings me a technique, and this has happened before, where like I don't think it's gonna work, first thing I'll say is like I'll never say never, because you don't know, right? I don't know. So if you find a way to use it, by all means do it. But here's what I really think about it, and the thing is you see this sometimes because we're in this age where instead of like, and I don't do this because you guys that watch the channel, you guys kind of see what my techniques are. Everything's pretty basic and simple. And the reality is that's what I use. I use basic, simple stuff. I find more enjoyment out of combining sort of simple but complex ideas and sort of stringing them together with good timing, where you can have a game that's very simple and it gets the job done just fine. But we're in this age where people want attention. And so on social media and YouTube and things like that, it's not necessarily about the effectiveness about it. It's about, well, what will people, click like on? And so you'll see these techniques where it's like, a bazillion feet in weird places. And I'm looking at it and it's like technical move masturbation. Like, looks cool, but really you're not doing anything. Like, because I've never seen it before. It's like, there's sometimes where, there are techniques where they're pretty funky. But there's guys that do them. Like some of those rolls, they look funky, but then when you get put into them, there's a lot of control going on. But there's some of these moves where it's like these weird, like almost like if you had to like count up the number of movements that they did, it was like a 20-part movement that required way too many variables, where like maybe I would hit this on like a white belt who like doesn't know what they're doing, but against someone of comparable skill level, it's just not going to happen because it's based upon too many. It's based upon breaking a number of fundamental principles in jiu-jitsu. Those are the ones where like, like I've seen people do like, well, if the person's in back mount, I'm going to reach down and like grab this and do that. I'm like, what are you doing? They're off. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a good move. You're breaking a really fundamental, your principles. So yeah, I see it all the time. Again, I don't really give too much mind to it. I just kind of like block it. But if one my students comes up to them, I'll tell them first off, man, never say never. You show them. I mean, because if you decide to go down the rabbit hole, I'm not learn. I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's a good idea, because they're doing these things. And I think this is going to be the big hang up. But that said, if you can make it work, man, by all means, do it.
Yeah, and sometimes some of those moves are based on the body style. Like you may have to have really long arms or long legs or short arms.
You better be super flexible.
Exactly.
Or whatever,
yeah. I mean, like some of the guard retention techniques maybe where like you take your leg and fold your foot inside, and but some people might not.
Yeah, I just think that sometimes I look at stuff and I just kind of shake my head and I'm like, it looks cool, but I feel like it's just an Instagram move. It's like someone like, you know what I mean? It's like for instance, when you look at some of these fitness like personalities on Instagram, they'll do whatever like friggin' goofball exercise that they can just so that people will be like, ooh, that looks neat. You know what I mean? Like
I love that shit.
It's the novelty aspect.
There's
of
a guy on Instagram. He's a BJJ competitor.
Okay,
I think he has a purple belt or and he might be he's some kind in the health and fitness realm.
Yeah.
Crazy shit where he's like balancing on like 12 foam rollers
Yeah.
and like has like a balloon in his mouth.
Yeah.
And people are like, that idiots. He's fucking around. He's like making fun of, because people are always trying to reinvent like physical therapy or rehab. And I was like, man,
bro,
you can't get away from like you can't lift and squats and certain shit. It's like that's the bread and butter. You got to do those or whatever. There's not going to be 100 different ways to exercise.
So this morning, Joe, my business partner, he sends me he'll send me like those like gym mess ups.
So they're doing the wrong shit.
So he sent me one this morning. So I woke up like when I usually don't turn my phone on. Like it's in airplane mode for the first few hours of my morning. So I turned it on and the message was waiting for me, and I look at it, and it was the what is like a BOSU ball, like it said that platform with the half ball.
Yeah, the half ball. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a guy who'd flip that up so where you would normally whatever.
Yeah.
And like barbell back squat on it.
Yeah.
And then he like got chucked off, like he fell. I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, I understand doing a squat on one of those for the stability, but I'm not going to do a weighted barbell squat on those. And like with weight, it's like, why? Like, why are you doing that? Like, where is the like? Because this is the they did this back like when I was younger. They had this functional fitness craze back in the day where like it wasn't really even functional. It was about like what kind of weird ass stuff can we combine together, call it functional, and then say, well, like we're gonna, they're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, hey guys, we're gonna squat, and we're gonna squat on a unstable surface with one shoe on, one shoe off, and then we're gonna have one side's gonna have more weight, the other side's. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever kind of weird variables you can throw into it, and it's just, it's like, look, man. To me, look at the strongest people in the world. What do they do? Like they don't do that stuff. It's like, and I understand you're trying to like carve out a niche for yourself, but you can't get away from the bread and butter basics.
Right.
It is what it is, man. Like I understand adding in like good, like, activation exercises and things like that. Good, like
Accessory work.
good,
Yeah.
good accessory work, because that can make a huge role. But those bread and butter movements, man, are going to be mainstays because they've been around for, I mean, literally, there's nothing more functional than picking something off the floor, sitting down, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, because you're in physical rehab and stuff. So I feel like I think you maybe either shared with me or maybe Jess did, but one of the biggest contributors to people going to nursing homes is they don't have the leg strength to get up and off the toilet.
Yeah, they can't squat. I mean, but that's one of the things.
Yeah. So you
When
can't
get up. I mean, there's only so many adjustments and modifications you can make. Like you can raise your toilet seat and different stuff, or get handlebars or grab bars. But like, eventually, you don't have the leg strength and you can't keep yourself up. You're gonna fall. You're not gonna be able to pick your feet up. Whatever. You're not gonna be able to get to the bathroom yourself. You're gonna be just. I mean, yeah, it's functional. It's like I get people all the time. They're like, I tell them, like, we're gonna work on squats. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't squat. I was like, did you get in your car and get out of your car? Well, you're squatting.
It's squatting.
I mean, it's different. The height may be different. The resistance is different, but you better damn well learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And without back pain,
What's interesting is there was a guy. He's one of my family's like friends. We call him Mr. E. Mr. E's like 90. He's like 90 something. He's like an old dude, right? And he's like, yeah, back when I was 70. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like the guy's like, he's been talking forever, but he was saying that what he, and again, this is all anecdotal, but I think there's some truth to it, right? He told me, he said, yeah, when I was 70, all of a sudden, things just seemed like they're going downhill. My health wasn't as good, and the doctors were getting worried about me. He said, so I used to get up every morning. I would just do some squats. I would try to get at least 100 in a day, yeah, exactly.
That's
right.
awesome.
And he said that like doing those squats, he said that's what's helped him out the most. He's like, I could do squats and go for walks, and he said he's like, that's what's kept me out of the nursing home.
Yeah.
And I was
you don't have to be lifting a shit ton of weight, but if you have good squat mechanics, I mean, you're activating muscles. You're like greasing or lubing up your joints by getting that movement, that blood flow.
Plus, dude, a squat, it's an exhausting exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think that they've done some studies where they measure that overall leg strength and VO2 max are like they correlate with each other. So a higher VO2 max and higher leg strength correlate with one another, and then leg strength with overall mortality. Right, so the stronger your legs are, they tend to find that you have longevity in your body and your. I think it's just having some strong legs is important.
Stronger legs, stronger bones, less likely to break a hip.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So, and the other thing is hormone production. When you're doing squats, deadlifts, you're hitting those big muscles that promote testosterone and all that stuff. That hormone production. So. That all works in. So
work them legs.
Keeping you out of nursing home, people. That's what we're doing.
Working them legs. You don't have to go crazy heavy. Just get the work in.
All right.
If you guys have any questions, you can throw them out as we're going through.
We're looking. All right, here's a coaching question for a kid.
Okay.
So AJW.
AJW, yeah.
You wanna read that?
Yeah, let me read it. So we got here, my 10-year-old daughter just started competing. I've been training for 10 plus years, and I'm having trouble coaching her in tournaments because my mind thinks too advanced. What's your advice for coaching kids? So when you're coaching kids, one, I would ask if you're teaching kids, AJ. So if you're teaching kids, I would wonder if you're doing that. I was talking to my kids' coaches the other day, and I tell them this, that I really think that if you want to be a really good jiu-jitsu coach, you should spend some time teaching kids. Not because of any other reason, like morally or whatever. It's good to teach kids because I think it's a helpful way to sort of give back. But when you teach kids, you're forced to break down complex ideas into simple ways of saying it. To me, sometimes I listen to some jiu-jitsu coaches. I've been to jiu-jitsu coaches that were brilliant people, and I get so bored because I'm like, they're just everything's this big giant. Like I feel like they're not teaching me jiu-jitsu. They're trying to like flex their lexicon on me, right? Like look at these big words I'm saying. I'm like, look, I don't care about it. Just teach me the principles you're trying to share. And I think that one of the things that I taught kids for years, and so one of the reasons, if you guys watch me, like one of the things that people say is, man, like you break things down in really simple terms. Well, it's because I've been teaching kids forever. I teach adults obviously plenty, but I got so used to breaking simple things down that's just the way it stays. I use simple terms because it's like what I think it was Einstein that maybe said, if you can't say it simply, you can't, or if you can't explain it simply, then you don't really know it, or you can't explain it. I'm butchering that, I'm sure, but I'm sure you guys will post it. But when you're teaching something, you have to be able to teach it simply. You want to be able to mama bird it, right? Meaning like you're going to take that information, chomp it up, and then break it down into digestible bits for other people. And so if you're going too advanced, then I think that you need to sort of backtrack a little bit and maybe do a little bit more coaching like with the kids and try to think about making everything as simple as possible. Could you explain this to a brand new person? Could you do that? Like, could you explain this idea, the concept to a brand new person? Not to say that you always have to do that, but it's a good exercise. I used to have some fun with kids, teaching them. I literally would go in sometimes on some weeks where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try complex stuff and just see if I can do it. I remember like the first time I taught seonagi, right? I had to teach the kids these simple drills and to different parts, but by the end of it, they were doing it. Or we had a kid one time, I was teaching him how to do daily hiva. And again, this is a kid, he was competing and stuff, and I wanted to show him how to do it because he was kind of already getting there on his own. Like it was just neat. He was already playing daily hiva. He didn't know he was playing daily hiva, but I showed him how to play it. And again, trying to teach a kid how to play that was different because there's a lot of complex things going on. And so I had to break those things down. So I would say it's in repetition, just like anything else. Try to see if you can coach the kids more if you're not already doing so. This way you can kind of constantly get better at breaking everything down simply. But again, that's the idea. So,
All right, good. We actually touched about like dealing with depression and how jiu-jitsu has helped. So, middle class rapper says, I'm trying to start a vlog about how BJJ has helped my depression problems. Every week, I want to put commentary on a roll with a different guy in our academy. Any tips on how to keep?
I say this to everybody. I talk to people that ask about the videos and stuff like that, and I say, man, like make something you would want to watch.
Right.
Like if you can't watch it all, like here's the thing. Like so, if you can't even watch your own work, ain't nobody gonna else watch that stuff. So if you're doing like first off, if you're doing rolling commentary, I would probably, I don't know how I would use it, just because a lot of times people just set up a camera and it's very boring to watch. Like there's nothing moving. Like you probably don't mind watching it, but no one else is gonna watch it because you don't really know they don't really know who you are, so they're probably not gonna be that interested in watching you roll. And I'm not saying this to be mean; it's just the way it is. I think that if you wanted to break those little chunks down into something, it might be more useful to people. But think about the videos that you like to watch. Think about the things that you enjoy watch. You sort of maybe make your own version of that. That's what I would say first. From a place of enthusiasm, if you speak to yourself, you speak to an eternal audience. 1 second.
It's my computer, probably, Chewy. You going?
Yeah, it's going.
All right, it's my shit.
I don't know why it's going. Yeah. All right, cool.
There we go.
Just making sure.
We're back.
Making sure you guys are still with me because it looked like the thing froze up. But going back to your man, if you're going to make YouTube videos, find YouTube videos that you like watching and then find ways that you can make something into it. That said, I really think that there's a really good, like, this is something I've talked to a few of my guys with. I really think there's some magic into like just being in it for a while. And then when you decide to come out with some content, like, you think about how long I did jiu-jitsu before it was in any regular sense. Like there was a long time. I really think there's something magical about, like, we're in a world where it's social media, like where as soon as someone gets into anything, they want to start telling people how to do it. You know what I mean? Like where it's like, I've been training, weights for 1 year and now I want to teach other people how to, like, why don't you go do it for 10 years and really own it and then come back and tell me? I know it's not the fun thing that everybody wants because you can't go out and tell people, but like I think it's so powerful. There's nothing wrong with sharing, but I think that there's really something magical about developing yourself first before you bring that out to everyone else.
You're more confident in your craft and what you do.
And I think it's real, man. Like, so, because if you go up and you put up a good smoke screen on social media, it's all bullshit. But like, for instance, like right now, what if I had a really big YouTube channel, but then I didn't even have a gym? I didn't even have people in there, right? It's like it'd be all bullshit, but it's not because I've been training people for shit like 10 years now, consistently. 10 years I've been like
Yeah.
2009 was when I started teaching full time, as far as the coach. And then 2010 was when I started, when I quit my job. But for 10 years, I've been teaching people consistently, right? You've been with me for 9 years. 2010 when you came in. You came in 2010,
Was it
didn't you?
10?
Yeah, 2010. And so you've been with me for 9. I've been teaching people for a long time. So then when I teach people, it's not like, I know my craft, and so I think there's really about something just like owning that stuff, man. You don't have to necessarily go for 9 or 10 years, but man, really own what you do. Know it. Like be focused on the absorbing of all that information, really know your stuff and then bring yourself out, right? It's almost like if you're going to bring out a product to the market, right? You're going to try to really polish that product. You're going to make it try to good. It's never going to be perfect, but you're going to try to make it good, and then you're going to bring it out and say, okay, here it is, and that product is yourself. So
Yeah.
your own self development first before you try to like say, hey guys, I got the secret thing. Like you don't have the secret, no one does. You know what I mean? Like, but like you have things that you can share, you have things you can help with, and you definitely can, and you can be of more service to everyone around you if you really develop who you are at the core. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so long
So-
ramble about videos.
Here is a question, and I think that some of us, Chewy, I don't know if you can answer this one because all you do is jiu-jitsu. I'm kidding. It's not all you do. You do a lot more than jiu-jitsu. But for us with family, like, kids and stuff like that. So this question is from Jonty Ponte 02. And you do have a family. I'm not saying you don't have a
Yeah, of
family.
course, of course.
I want to start BJJ, but I don't know if I have enough time. How many times a week should I at least train for it to be worth it?
If you can train once a week, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, man, like the thing is people look at other people's experiences and then they think that that's what they want. And then when they get into situations and they can't have that experience, they feel like there's something wrong, right? They're like, well, about what so-and-so does. What can you do, or what's your experience like? It's your experience. It's
Yeah.
unique to you. I think that, with your training, man, first off, we all have time. It is what it is. Everybody's got the same amount of time.
Right.
Right. You might not have class times that fit with your schedule, but we all have time. I say this all the time to people, like, people say, oh, I can't do this or that. I'm like, I bet you it's really important to you. Like I'll be talking to some young guy and some young guy will tell me, man, Chewy, I don't have time. I said, I bet if I had some beautiful woman over here waiting for you or had a briefcase full of money, you'd figure some way to get over and do the damn thing. But then when it requires you to be a little bit more disciplined, and I'm not saying this is you, by the way, but if you have to be a little bit more disciplined about what you're doing, then it's like, oh, I don't have time, What I would say is, though, if you can train even one day a week, that's still worth it. You're still learning stuff. You're still in there. And you might find that over time, like, you might train a little bit more. You might find new ways to train. And, like, for instance, like, let's say you start off with one day a week, and then like 2 months into it, maybe something opens up with your job or your family or whatever it is. Gym opens up a new class, and then you can come 2 days a week. Well, then that's going to be helpful because then you're not going to be starting from scratch on those 2 days a week, And again, it's one of those things where if you're doing it, it's not about the short-term gain. It's about just once you get in, I'm just in it for a long time. And so however much you're doing it right now or not doing it right now, that doesn't matter. It's your experience. And I would say that if you want to do it, just do it. And don't worry about if you're getting up enough classes. Just do it. And whatever you can get is going to be enough for you.
I think it's also dependent upon what you value. Is there something you give up? Like maybe you stay up late, play video games, so maybe you can do something during that. I don't know, modify your schedule somehow. I think that another advantage of maybe coming once or twice a week when you start, you get so addicted to jiu-jitsu, you kind of limit burnout. You still have that desire and that fire. So my example wasn't the best, but like I'm just saying, if there's things during your day that like, man, shit, get off your phone, get off social media for an hour,
but
see if you can make it work.
But the thing is, it's not even always like useless things, because there's times where, at different points in our life, if we start to get a call to go into another direction, it's hard, man, because you then have a situation where you're dealing with kind of a breakdown of who you are, right? Since, as I got older, when I'm not old by any means, a lot, like way more than I do now. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that if I want to be able to serve people and I want to be able to live out my purpose what I'm actually trying to do, I had to train less. And that was hard for me to do. I know it sounds so stupid because it was just I'm in the gym all the time, but literally I had to train less. And that was almost like a breakdown for me because I'm like, I used to be the guy that was always on the mats, always training, doing all this stuff. I was competing all the time. And then I became a guy that wasn't doing all those things. And sometimes it's hard because the ego gets really attached to the way that things are. And if you start to change things, it doesn't like it, especially if you kind of like what you see, you know? So then you got to move in a new direction. So it may not even be that like if you have to give up something that you enjoy doing, it might be something actually like good, but it just, if you decided to move into a new direction, you got to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. There's always going to be stuff that comes up, and the main thing is be consistent. So if you're one time a week, be consistent. Make that your time for jiu-jitsu or your time to,
you know what I think's helpful is lifestyle design. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but really putting some focus on, just like we do anything else. What do I want my this to look like? What do I want my car to look like? What do I want my house to look like? Well, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want that thing to look like? Well, like, what kind of plan do you have for it? Like, how do you may not be able to make it look exactly the way you want, but even having a goal of like, I would like to have this day off, or I would like to have this time with my wife or my girlfriend, like, you know, like we have date night every Friday or whatever it is, like figuring out sort of some path for yourself so you actually put some thought into it. Most people don't put thought into the way that their life goes about. They just kind of like go, you know what I mean? And so there's something really to like think, settling back and saying, okay, like, what do you want this whole thing to look like? You know, just like you would anything else, we plan everything else out. Why wouldn't we plan?
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's what you like doing too. I mean, it's what you value.
When the problem is if you don't know what you value, and if you don't know what you want it to look like, then you don't know where to draw the boundaries. Because, you know, like for instance, if like someone asks me to do something that's not within my design, I can say, sorry, I'm not going to do that. That's just, I have to draw a boundary there because I'm not doing that. You don't, then there's no clear boundaries for myself to follow. So then I'll just get sucked right into it. And then before I know it, I've lost like my whole, like, you know, whole week because I've been doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing because someone asked and I didn't have.
That's a really hard thing, man. Because you don't want to be a dick. I know it. That's what I'm saying.
Being firm.
Exactly. But no, you're right. It's hard to do for people though, because people think, well, if somebody asks me to do something and I don't go out of my way to do them, they're going to think I'm a bad person or I don't care about what their needs are.
But that's not what it is, and that's
you're
the
right.
thing. You say no. You know what I mean? Because like they said, they feel bad, they feel guilty doing that, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like I can't. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people like will ask me, "Sorry, I can't. I don't have time. I really don't have the time to do that." Now it's not that I don't have time. It's in the block of time,
right? Because
it doesn't meet up with where I'm going, what I need to do. And it's like, I'm sorry. And that could be things like, hey, like I've been doing this since I was a kid. Guys, hey, you want to go out and party, go out and drink tonight? I'm like, sorry, guys, can't. It's not within my sort of where I'm going. I'm training. Can't do it. Sorry. I don't want to be drunk. I got to train tomorrow morning. You know, that was far more important to me than getting out and getting wasted and wasting my money. You know? So, I mean, you just got to know, even like with fights, guys will say, hey, man, you want to come over and watch all the fights? I'm like, nah, man, I'm going to be in bed. You know, unless those fights,
you are in bed all the time.
I mean, dude, unless those fights are like really got me wanting to watch, I'm like, I'm gonna be in bed, dude. Like I value waking up early, like consistently. I don't like staying out late on the weekends and then trying to recover halfway through the week. I like to go to sleep on a regular time. So it's just I know what my life what I want it to look like. So I'm like, when someone says, hey man, you want to watch the fights? I'm like, I can't. I gotta be in bed by 11.
You old geezer.
I'm an old. It's not even old man. I can stay up later if I want to. I just don't want to. You know, every now and then, like we'll watch one of the fights I really. But I like being in bed, man. I like being in bed, just relax and waking up early so I can have time to myself.
All right. Let's see. I don't know what we were talking about.
We were talking about big bouncy balls. Oh, we're with Chubbs Peterson.
That's
Ryan.
Who's Chubbs Peterson?
His name's Ryan.
Oh.
He lives up in right outside of Chicago.
All right, let's see. Let me see.
Adolf Hitler called me Dan Bilzerian's broke little brother. Am I broke?
People are.
Am I broke?
I don't know your financial status.
Am I broke?
Not gonna.
I didn't think I was broke.
I'm
broke.
True. All right. People love you. They say that. I don't know. Is there any more questions, guys? Send some questions.
Let's check here. So,
this guy thinks he can choke you out in 2 minutes.
Little Kentucky, baby. You can come over down, Matthew. You can see if you can choke me.
We've had that. Some guy told Chad no liabilities one time. He made a whole
thing. It's
whole
a whole thing
off
now,
it. He made
right?
a shirt off of that shit. We'll put your picture on a shirt. You get
Oh, wait, so he
choked.
said, no, no, he said right after he said, I'm kidding, man. Would love a private from you someday.
You're
That's
gonna get
funny.
choked out anyways.
Yeah, I'm gonna choke you out in that private if you get that
Yeah.
private lesson.
I don't know. I didn't see.
Chubbs Peterson. Ryan did a private with me. We did some half guard stuff. Yeah.
What do you like to do in your privates? Boom. This could go many ways.
So else again, just kick him off. Like it's silly. It's
Who's that?
no one, you know.
I don't know. I don't know how to do this.
Let's see here. Am I visiting Europe anytime? I'm not visiting Europe as I know. I'm talking to a couple gyms up there because, you know, I was talking to someone else. Like I generally like a lot of times with seminars, you have to charge like a big like upfront fee and stuff. A lot of times what I do is I don't really care about making a ton of money off the seminar or anything like that. So I just show up and I'll promote it and I'll like, you know, sell stuff online or whatever else. So I'm talking in Europe, and so we'll see. I may be out there. There's a couple in the UK that I might be in, so we'll see.
That'd be so cool. Have you ever been to Europe before?
I've been to Spain.
Spain, yeah,
I've
but
been
not to like
Spain,
the
yeah.
UK.
Land of the rabbits.
Huh, I didn't know that.
That's what it's. That's what it means.
Chewy, thoughts on training judo and BJJ?
Judo and jiu-jitsu is great. I think the thing that you'll have to be mindful of with judo is that you're going to have to modify those, just like wrestling too. You're going to have to modify those takedowns for jiu-jitsu because it's not the same. In you know, in judo, there's a lot of like restrictions on can you shoot on the legs, can you double hand grip break, and all these different things. And jiu-jitsu doesn't have any of those restrictions. So you know, you're not going to get guys standing straight up with you, and guys are not going to play the same way. And so you'll have to adapt those throws for jiu-jitsu, and you know, you just got to be mindful of that. So when you learn those techniques in judo, you'll have to then later on, you know, change the way when you're doing the jiu-jitsu. You can, you know, sort of adapt them a bit. So because I know like a couple of guys that do judo and they have to take them and change them a little bit. So
Okay. All right. Opinions on training when you are ill.
Adam Gomez, do you guys miss Jacqueline? Adam Gomez took Jackie from us because Jacob's dating her. She still trains with us a little bit. Now, what was that?
Jackie, has she been?
She boxes a bit with us, so she's been to the gym. What were you saying now?
Nice. I don't know. Something about illness.
Illness. Do you train with illnesses?
I don't know. I just missed it because you told me something.
I don't know. If you're asking if you should train sick, so don't train sick. Oh, opinions on training when you are ill is better to train to feel better at the risk of effect. No. If you're sick, you shouldn't show up to the gym.
Yes.
There's a difference. Like if you're kind of just feeling maybe whatever, like you're not too bad, that's fine. But if you're like coughing and sneezing and your throat's sore or whatever's going on, don't go to the gym because that stuff will spread like wildfire there. Stay home and get healthy.
So what about Victor? Victor asks, only 3 months into my BJJ journey, haven't tried a no-gi class yet. Any ideas on what to expect or get me ready, prepared for it?
It's just a class. Just show up. There's nothing to expect. They don't overthink it. It's a no-gi class. It's jiu-jitsu without the gi on. That's all it is. Just show up. You know, again, a lot of times, you know, if I was to go down deep into it, I mean, what to expect? I mean, whatever. There's going to be different things, but the reality is just do it. Because if you start overthinking things, it becomes this big thing, and you overthink it, whatever. And then when you finally do it, you're like, oh, it was just a class, right? Like if you're going to your gym, they're there to teach you. So just show up. As far as what to expect that they're not going to have the gi on, you're not going to have grips. So you'll have to change those to
Modify your grips, yeah.
Everything's going to be hands, underhooks, things like that. So pretty simple stuff.
All right. Let's try this one. From Wyatt Bray.
Mm-hmm.
Says, Chewy, in comparing gi and no-gi, do you have techniques that you feel are more effective for one or the other? I mean, sure, cross collar is probably easier in gi, haha. But anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a ton of techniques that I have in gi and no-gi that are different. So the premise of my upcoming seminar in Florida. So in Florida, what I'm going to be doing is I was talking to the guy who runs the gym that I'm going to be teaching at, the one that's hosting it, Sonny, and it's Gracie Bradenton, and it's just south of Tampa. You guys are if you're in that area, if you want to jump in April, it's about a month away. But the whole premise of the thing is some gi techniques and no gi techniques, similar position but different grips. And the idea is to kind of show the same sort of positions, the same sort of techniques, but then some of the adaptations that could change depending on whether or not you're in the gi or the no gi. And so that's kind of the premise of the seminar. So I'm putting that all together. But the idea is to give some of my best stuff that I use and show you guys how it will work in the gi, then how it works in no gi, how the grips change, and this way you can always kind of think about this because there's some basic principles to follow with that. But I definitely have techniques that I specifically do in gi because the gi's there. I don't base my whole game around the gi, but if it's there, I'll use it for certain things. And then I have techniques that I find easier in no gi that because the gi's not present, it's a lot less friction and it's a lot less there's less less stuff to get caught up in, and I can get in there a little bit easier and finish the move.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be a little tighter also, because there's so much more, there's less friction, obviously, and less stuff people can grab on. So, and also different, ankle locks are legal versus.
Most time, yeah.
Yeah. So, heel hooks can't do in the gi. So you're going to learn some different stuff that leg entanglements get a little part of the game there too.
Absolutely.
So.
And I think that, the beautiful thing is I know that some people don't like one or the other, but I think that they're beautiful for both because I think they complement one another more than they detract from one another.
Sure.
I think that if you get a game that's based too much around one or the other, then obviously you have a problem. But I think that if you play a game that where you have options in both, then you learn the ability to use just your body.
Yeah.
In no gi, and you learn how to use control with just that. But in the gi, you can also learn how to the gi's a little bit more methodical a lot of times because you have to slow things down with the lapels and the grips and everything else. And you also have to make sure that if you're escaping, I know escaping is one of the big ones. You put someone in the gi and they can't get away from you because you have handles and all their frames and everything have to be picture perfect. Whereas then you put them back into no gi and it's a lot more efficient. So there's a lot of benefits from both to the other. And so I think they're helpful. That said, I like no gi more, but just my preference.
Yeah, they definitely complement each other. I think one will make you better in the other. In my opinion, one makes you better in the other.
I think so, depending on the game you play. If you're really lapel heavy, if you're just playing all lapels, I think that switching over to gi is going to be or no gi is going to be tough. But if you have the lapel game, then you play other stuff. You can do both. I think you just want to make sure that whenever you're playing a game in the jiu-jitsu, in the gi anyway, you want to think about how would this adapt to no gi, right? And then if you're into no gi, how would this adapt to the gi? Are there different adjustments that can be made? So this way you can kind of think about, well, how would I make this go to the other? So
here's a good question from Connor Hampstead. He says, how do you personally fit in weight training around BJJ? I feel like I can only perform well at one. Perform well at one of them at any given time.
Well, absolutely, Connor. So if you're doing weight training in jiu-jitsu, I strongly encourage you to separate them from some time. I wouldn't do I don't ever do them back to back. They're always separated by several hours. And the reason being is because one, if I go from jiu-jitsu to weight training, my muscles are all loose and relaxed and I'll hurt myself. Literally things just don't feel good. They don't feel nice and tight. And then if I go in from weight training to jiu-jitsu, I just feel weak. My muscles just don't have that pop that they usually do. And I found that I tend to tweak myself a little bit. So if I was to do a squat session and then go to jiu-jitsu, typically I end up, my legs are just fatigued. And especially when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're doing all this stabilizer stuff, and you're using these muscles in absence of the prime movers because your quads, your hamstrings are all shot, and then you're trying to move around in a quick manner. It's just not going to be the best idea. So I would personally encourage you that if you do some weight training, separate them for a number of hours so that you have space. And I only typically lift maybe 3 days a week, sometimes 4, but usually 3. So it doesn't have to take forever. So most of the time I'll lift for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and then that's it, so.
Also, kind of what's your purpose for lifting? Are you lifting to better your jiu-jitsu? Are you trying mass? I mean, what's the reason for your training as well? I mean, I think that's also another aspect to think about.
A number of reasons for me personally, so you guys can pick your own reasons, but for me, I lift because I enjoy it, first off. I freaking love lifting. I love lifting weights. It's just fun. It's a therapeutic, meditative thing to do. Where I can put my headphones in. Sometimes I'll either listen to some music to get me pumped up, or I'll listen to audio programs. I'll go into the gym in my own thoughts, lift weights. And I'm lifting one to keep my muscles strong because I know there's a definite benefit to just having strong muscles around those joints. I know my body feels better. I have less injuries. I feel less beat up from things if I train. I don't try to push it like I'm not doing like heavy, hardcore, you know, crazy powerlifting or anything like that. It's more about just keeping my body strong. And I can tell you that just from competing and from training for a long time, having that extra strength is nice. Like having a little extra power, a little bit of extra strength goes a long way when you're on the mats. Because if I run into someone that's like the same skill level as me, but I'm in better condition than them, I'll beat them because I'll be able to I'll be able to have more horsepower than them. You know, but you know, ultimately I'm doing it because I just want to. It keeps me strong. It keeps me healthy. And again, no, everyone, you'd be a liar if you said, "Man, I wouldn't want to look a little bit better without my clothes on." I mean, everybody likes looking a little bit more muscly. Everybody likes having like a little bit bigger arm or, you know, some thicker legs or something like that. No one's going to be upset with that. So, you know, it's all those things. But I really enjoy just as is. I'm a friggin' meat-headed heart. I started lifting weights before I did jiu-jitsu. I lifted weights when I was in seventh grade. You know, started going down to the basement of my buddy's house, and I'd lift with his dad. And we'd go down there and lift weights together. And I was addicted from the get-go. I was like, this is so much fun. You know, I don't know what it is. It's just something that's really cool about getting that pump, you know, and just putting yourself through some exertion.
I think, in my opinion, you know, if you want to be better at jiu-jitsu, lift weights, you know, that's one thing. And if you want to help prevent injury, lift weights. Now, the spacing and the time, like you said, you have to switch it up. You may have to do it on a day that you're not training. For me personally, I have to do jiu-jitsu, or I have to do jiu-jitsu and weight training on different days. But other than that, the research is out there on injury prevention. You know, you're less likely to get injured if you strength train.
And you also got to make sure that you don't go crazy in the gym and like mess up the form and everything else. Because it's the one thing is I see people that'll go into the gym, they'll just try to like go crazy in the weights, and you'd be best to like practice really good form,
Right.
and then like work your way up. Because again, if you're going to the gym and you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner primarily, you're not going in the gym to be the best lifter. You're going in there for support of your jiu-jitsu. So you don't need to be going in there and like trying to outlift the lifters. If you can, great, but you don't necessarily have to. But practicing good form on your lifts is super important because you know, guys, you can tear your body up with lifting. It can be amazing medicine that can benefit you in a lot of ways, but it can be really destructive if you don't do it the right way.
That's a great point, man. Really great point. Chewy, we've had this situation at the gym before.
What's that?
Lance Cavalier asks about are there ever cases of students who can't afford classes, so they do other things to sort of pay for their membership?
Yeah.
If so, how would you go about asking the owners for some sort of terms like that?
So here's what me and my business partner were talking about this this morning. My business partner and I, we will go out of our way to take care of people that are trying to help themselves. I will not go out of my way to help someone that's just looking for a handout. What I mean by this is like there's a lot of people these days where I'll get messages like all the time where like someone will say, "Hey man," like they've never trained at my gym, and they'll say, "Man, would you guys want to sponsor me to be like something something?" I was like, "No, I'm not going to sponsor you. I don't know who you are, and you've never trained with me. You've never even trained. Like you have this idea of what you think you're going to do because they'll say, "Oh, well, you should sponsor me to train at your gym for free, and I'll like compete with you and or you're for your gym." And all like I'm like, who are you? You know, but like say for instance, if I have one of my guys who has been training his butt off. Here's a great example. We have this one guy training his ass off all the time. Such a good guy to have in the gym. And then he had a baby. He sort of was in the process of switching jobs because he got a real estate license and he wasn't making the money at that time, and he had a wife and all these things going on. And so you know he came up to us and he told us he was gonna have to cancel it. And I was like, man, you're a good dude, like you know, and I know you don't have the money, and like he wouldn't have done this otherwise. So we worked out a deal with him, and then he came back up to us once he was making the money. He said, "Hey man, you can go and I can pay the normal rate again."
That's awesome.
You know, it's like I'm good. You know, I'm making the money now. Thank you guys so much. Or you know, I've had a couple times where you know some younger guys, you know, just for literally had no money. You know, maybe lost their job or whatever. And I was like, well, man, here you can clean this, or you can do this, or you can help us out with this, or you can teach a class or something. There's ways to work around it. But ultimately, the only people that I will allow to do that, and my business partner will allow to do that, are the people that we can see that are already putting forth the effort. I'm not going to give handouts, but I will give a hand up. And if I see the person putting in that effort, then I know that it means something to them. But a lot of times, you know, we'll have people that just come out there like, gimme, right? Like they just want to They just want a handout. They don't want to hand up. And with those people, I just say, no, I'm not. I can't do it. Sorry. But for the people that I know that are out there busting their butt already, those are the guys that like, look, man, I'll take care of you because I know sometimes it's tough, right? I've been there before. So it really depends on you. It's the relationship that you have with the coach. If you've been in there in the gym and you're a fixture and you're busting your tail on the mat, if you come up to your coach and say, look, some situation happened, they'll probably be pretty apt to work with you. If you come up to someone that you don't know for the very first time and you start like saying, hey, listen, I need help with they're probably not going to listen to you because they don't know you. It's as simple as that, And so what I would say is do whatever you can. I don't know the situation that you're in, but do whatever you can to make yourself a fixture in the gym and bust your tail in there and really work so that people know that you're serious. Because when they see someone that's serious, you can see seriousness, right? When they see that they're serious about their training, they're taking it seriously. If that person needs the help, they'll give them the help. Whereas if it's someone that's just kind of screwing around and then all of a sudden they're like asking for help, it's kind of like, well, you never really took this seriously. Now you're not even taking it seriously enough to, pay your gym dues or whatever. Then it's gonna be like, nah, it's okay, man. And we've done a lot of stuff for people over the years, but it's always to those people that we know that are already so.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Yeah, I've seen you do it a lot of times, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And it really, it really depends on the individual because they'll be posting, buying certain things, and then you're like, dude, what's like? And we see it, and you're like, this is just your priorities are messed up.
Yeah, we had a guy one time. This is no joke. So my business partner, he just got so frustrated. Because we had a guy that came in and he was telling us, he's like, hey man, like can't pay the bills right now. And he was training and his two kids were training. And we liked the guy. And my business partner especially, he really liked him. So he's like, you know what, man, don't worry about it. Like, why don't you mop the mats? Why don't you mop the mats when you're training? So every day you mop the mats, we'll just, you train one day, you mop the mats that day, right? After class is over, just mop the mats after you're done, we'll just call it square, right? So he's like, sure, no problem. Well, he didn't follow up with that. He did it a couple times and he stopped mopping the mats and he'd still come train. So we kind of had to tell him, like, hey man, you got to mop the mats. That's the deal. And then I remember one day where, he just, he wasn't mopping the mats. He was still training, whatever. And, still crying this idea of like, I don't have the money. And then he came in one day with like brand new clothes. Like everything was like brand new Jordans, brand new this, that, whatever. And, my business partner was so frustrated because he went out of his way to help who he thought was a friend. And then he felt like he got duped where the guy was like, oh, I can't pay, but then I'll go out and buy clothes. And so, priorities are important. I think a lot of times people say that, and you may not be in this case because I understand, but I remember being a young kid and sacrificing a whole lot to do this thing. Like, for instance, if I was in the situation that I was when I was younger, like if I had to, I wouldn't have a phone. There was a point when I was younger, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have the money for it. I was like, I don't want a cell phone. I was like, I got to train. Fuck a phone. I need to train. I don't care about talking to people. I need to train. There was a point where I was younger. I lived in a studio apartment with my other buddy because I was like, we literally were there sleeping in a studio apartment, but I was like, this is what we're gonna do right now because I gotta whatever. It didn't matter. Like there was things that I had to prioritize. And again, it's not pretty. I mean, it's like it's not gonna look like what you think it's supposed to look like, but at the same time, you gotta figure out what's valuable to you ultimately. And for me, like, new clothes and phones and all that stuff, it really wasn't important. What was really important to me was continuing to train because I really enjoyed that. That was the thing I enjoyed, and so that's what I focused on.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we'll do a couple more, Chew.
Couple more, and then we'll wrap this up, guys. So if you got some questions, throw them out, and then we'll end this thing.
Let's see. Why don't you pick a couple? We're down here. We got only a few.
All right, let me
gotta see if you can find one.
Let's see here.
And guys, this we've got the Charlotte's Web podcast is going to be out. We're gonna have a podcast on CBD out this Friday. It's gonna have a ton of information on the CBD we use and kind of how it works and all that fun stuff. So. That'll be out Friday. Anything else you got planned? We've got a seminar planned.
Got a seminar in Florida, in Tampa.
Yeah.
Just south of Tampa. I'll also be, if any of you guys are in the like Wisconsin area or nearby, I'm going to be up in Baraboo, Wisconsin, the following weekend after that. And there's a seminar up there my buddy Wade's putting on. He has a few spots left. So if anybody's interested, you can look up Midwest BJJ Immersion Camp. We have a blast with it every year. A bunch of good. It's me and several other black belts, and it's a good time. So if you can make it up there, it'll be fun. Let's see.
This is a funny one. It could be
what
interesting. Have
go,
you noticed a change of mood or pace around the gym with the change of mat color?
that's funny,
That's
because
interesting, right?
blue is typically a calming
Yeah.
effect. Here's what I'll tell you guys. So if I want to change the mood, I play different music. That's what changes things, right? So like, and they do this at those like big like. I think it was Tony Robbins or something was talking about like he'll like play certain music to get like people in a certain state, right?
Sure.
And they've done studies where like certain music can put you into a certain particular state with wavelengths or whatever. So with the music, I play certain musics to get certain responses. So like this morning, I was ready to train, so I played some harder music, right? And then there's some times where I'm like, okay, I want the guys to play a little bit more. So maybe we're working on some new position. I might put on like some like more chill or like, some Bob Marley type music where it's like a little bit more chill and flowy, and that kind of brings down the mood a little bit. But if it's like I want them to get after each other, boom, the hard music goes on. You know what I mean? And so you can kind of manipulate that kind of stuff, and it's weird too because it works. Like people start to like if that music's playing hard, they're getting after it. Whereas if it's a little bit more relaxed, they subconsciously just kind of move around a little. I typically do it with music. Oscar Hunter, why don't you answer your subscribers? Oscar, I don't know what you're asking, brother. I'm answering subscribers right now.
There was one about, I can't find it now, but somebody's asking about just nerves before training. And what do you do, or what do you recommend somebody do if they're like nervous before class?
Do it. Being nervous before class. So I used to be nervous all the time before class. I'll tell you probably the most telling time where I was like nervous before class. So obviously, but after I was training, because obviously when I was nervous as hell when I first started training, but when I first met now Derby City MMA, my friend owned it, Colin, and there was another. So I was originally on another team, another gym, and I moved to that gym. And when I moved to that gym, I was coming from the rival gym. Okay, so I wasn't I wasn't originally part of it. I was coming from like the enemy, and I was coming over there. And their MMA team was rough. Like everybody just beat the shit out of each other. It was the way that it's the way that everybody trained back in the day. But I remember when I would go there were a few guys in there that would really give me some tough times. I mean, it was like tough fights. These guys were pro fighters, and they were tough. And so I remember going into the MMA training sessions knowing what I was getting in for. And I remember I would have music playing, and I would be like in the car, like getting myself pumped up, like I was getting ready for a tournament because I knew we were going to get down tonight. Like it's going to be tough. I'm going to be beat up. I'm going to be hurt tonight, and I'm going to need an ice bath or something. Like I'm going to be hurting tonight. And the thing is though, those are the things that make you stronger. Now, granted, I think there was a better way to train, but I'm a stronger person because of it. Because in spite of all that nervousness and like second guessing and self doubt, I always did all right. And so the same thing is for you. You might be nervous, and that's okay. It's fine to be nervous. It's normal to be nervous. Your body's getting ready for something. It knows it's going to be tough, but you don't want to run away from it. So the sort of thing is just move towards it. And the reality is, man, is that you're going to do it. So just embrace it instead of trying to like get rid of this nervousness and get rid of these anxious feelings. They're going to be there. They're always going to be there. Honestly, if I go to a competition or something that I know is normally kind of stressful in my system, if I don't get nervous, I feel like what's wrong with me? Something feels off. I don't feel like the same thing. I like feeling that nervousness. It makes me feel alive because there's not a lot of things in my life that do that. And so with you, don't look at it as such a bad thing. Look at it as a good thing. Like your body's getting ready for something. And if you learn how to channel that energy that's coming through you, it can be used to make you perform at a higher level. Right? You listen to high performers. They perform better under pressure. That's a skill though. You have to be able to just do it more and more and more. You've got to be able to put yourself in the pocket and deal with that pressure and just keep going. So I can't give you an exact thing. Here's what you need to do. But what I would say is just embrace it. Go with it. That was what I did. I used to just I would go into the gym. I knew I was going to feel nervous. And I was like, whatever, I'll turn some music on and I'm going to go do the damn thing. And I would suggest that you do the same.
I would do some deep breathing and I would actually listen to like some kind of motivational like clip on YouTube or something. There's some like motivational things that sometimes I'll listen to. I don't know why.
Everybody's got their own way.
They seem to kind of visualization, just visualize like a positive outcome. I'll do some of those things. The deep breathings, really. When I go to a tournament and I'm nervous, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to just, think. All right.
I like that. This guy Cannon Fodder says have Tool or similar stuff on people be jealous. Plus, he's a hairband fan. That's the real reason. He's a hairband fan.
It's like an 80s, what hairband? So
yeah, it's 80s.
So 80s, like Van Halen.
Yeah, like the hairband with all the big poison and like all that stuff. Yeah,
oh, yeah. That Adam loves. How do you think people roll when Adam plays his 80s music?
Golly, so Adam, if you guys haven't seen, I've been posting on my Instagram. Adam plays like straight up like 80s pop music. Like
it's awesome.
So on Thursday nights when Adam teaches, he teaches like with pop music and it's like 80s stuff and it's so funny. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm so used to like listening to music to like, for a certain effect that I feel like I'm listening to like some Wham.
But it's
or
kind
something.
of like upbeat, so you're kind of like moving.
I know it's like you're moving. It's having fun. It's a fun class.
Everybody's kind of smiling a little bit.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. You're definitely smiling when all of a sudden like. You have there was one song that came on the other night, and I just couldn't help but just almost like grin because he was playing, and I was like, "This silly bastard."
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, one more, Chew.
All right, one more. Let's see here. Real quick, have I ever had a white belt tap me? Man, when I train in the gym, sometimes like I'll let guys get me, but I've never had a white belt like legitimately tap me. I've let them tap me if they're working on something, but not legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just answer this last question here.
All right.
So, it says, how do you know when you're ready for the first competition? This is from David Lomas. How do you know you're ready for your first competition? This is for a lot of people. They're wondering when they're going to be ready for their first one because there's a lot of people that are new and jiu-jitsu is getting more and more popular. And a lot of people that get into jiu-jitsu, they don't have any experience with competition, right? So they're like, when is the right time? There isn't a right time, man. Like, I mean, you got to think about this. When you get into it, there isn't going to be a perfect time for you. I've seen people train for like months or a year or so, and then they do the first competition, they get crushed. Mm-hmm. I've seen people train for a few weeks, and then they do really well. There's not a right time. What I would say is that if you have the call to go do it, if you have this urge to compete, just go do it. I talked about this actually last night, and the thing is that you can't be too. You have to have a desire to win. You have to have a desire to win, right? Because when you're competing, you have to go for it. But at the same time, you cannot be needy for the win. There's a difference, okay? Like we don't like needy people, right? There's nothing wrong with having desire, passion for something, but when you're needy for something, it creates a problem. I'll give you an example. I answered this question the other night. It hasn't been posted yet, but there was a question I got where the guy, he competed once, and then now he doesn't want to compete anymore. And he says it's kind of wrecked his whole sort of outlook on jiu-jitsu because he got into it because he wanted to compete, but the environment of competing was intimidating. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And to me, what this represents is if you guys are familiar with the work of Joseph Campbell, he calls this the refusal of the call. And this motif is in pretty much every sort of mythological story. It's in every single movie. Like, do you remember when we watched Logan? Mm-hmm. So when we were watching,
God, that was terrible.
So
no, the movie was great, but in my head the whole time.
Yeah.
Terrible shit.
So if you watch a movie, like an American movie, you can literally break it down, but by like percentaging. And like I watch them with the stop clock, and I'll literally like look at my girlfriend and be like, that was the change of plans. That's the point of no return, right? And she's like, shut up. Like let me watch the movie.
Thank you, Jess.
But there's this point that Joseph Campbell calls the refusal of the call. And if you guys watch a movie, look for this, okay? So in the very first point of the movie, there's always the beginning where they introduce the character, they let you know who they are and what they do, and then all of a sudden this opportunity comes up. This adventure for them is posed. In the Lord of the Rings, it's, hey, we're going to go on this quest. We're going to do this thing. In Shrek, it was to save the princess. In Logan, it was to go do that thing for to transport them to the girl or whatever, right?
Well, initially it was for them to escape,
right?
And go to buy a boat.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing. So
spoiler alert.
And then what happens is the hero always goes, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that thing. They refuse the call, and then they go, okay, I'm going to do it. So there's always this refusal of the call, and so. And the reason that Joseph Campbell said that this motif was so present in all these stories was because that's what we do. Whenever we have these challenging situations, when things get tough, we tend to sort of back away. And when in reality, we just have to go with it. Like we have to go because just like in the movies, the characters are always fundamentally changed because of that, by taking the call, by choosing the adventure. It's the same thing with us. Like when we go into those places and do those things, we're fundamentally changed. And so what I would say is whenever you feel like you're ready to compete, that's the time to compete. Doesn't matter. Just like get a couple months of training in, feel like you kind of know what's going on. Have at least one technique that you can do from each position. One escape from all the major positions, back, mount, side control. Have a good guard submission, one sort of submission from top, you're good. Go with that. And then just compete, and don't be attached to the result, because it's going to be intimidating. It's going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be tough. You're going to feel an intensity that's not present in your gym. It's just the way it is. You don't know this person. They're trying to rip your head off. It's going to be crazy, but do it several times. And I promise you have to do this. You need to get a win. Like if any of you guys ever decide to compete, do not quit until you get one win. The reason I say this is my first competition. You'll see this in a video coming up probably next week. My very first competition was a wrestling match. I lost. I got smashed. And the worst part is all my buddies won that day. It was a meet, and everyone else in every other weight class on my team won. I was the only one that lost. It sucked. 30 seconds in, I get pinned in my first match. If you would ask me then, I would have competed again. But in wrestling, I had to compete again. Later on that week, a couple days later, my coach says, all right, you're up again. You're going to compete today. Okay. I won that time. I won. And I was able to compare the bitterness of defeat with the sweetness of victory. And so if you decide to compete, I'm just saying this to you guys, do not stop until you get at least one win. So you know what it's like to have your hand raised, and you can then say, you know what? I'll choose to continue competing, or I'm going to just let this one go. I have plenty of students that have won tournaments and they're like, yeah, this isn't for me. I've done it. It's just not for me. But I've also seen people where they choose not to do it just because it gets tough. Mm-hmm. And I get messages from people all the time that say, man, I've done a tournament, I lost, I'm never competing again. I'm like, dude, you haven't experienced both sides of it. You need to, it's like going to a restaurant and having one bad meal and then writing the place off. I did that one time. Like Shiraz, I love this. There's this Mediterranean place. I freaking love this place. The first time I went there, I had a meal that I didn't like. And so I was like, that place sucks. And then my buddy was like eating it, and he said, it's so good. I'm like, what do you mean it's good? I thought it was terrible. He's like, no, you got to eat there. I went there again and got the food that he suggested, and I was like, oh, my God, this is so good. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of my favorite places to go. And so it's like that. It's like you need to get both sides of it. And so I would say that don't worry so much about when's the right time to compete, but make sure that when you take upon the call, when you choose to go with it, do not stop until you get at least one win. Know what it's like to have your hand raised. Know what it's like to be hung down low and you feel like everything sucks. Know what it's like to have both, so this way you can make a good assessment. And also, it'll feel good if you lose, because a lot of people lose early on. It's really good when you get your hand raised, because not only did you win, but you realize that you were the person that made it possible for you to win. That you can't take that. That's what you did, not anybody else. That was you. Long ramble, but that's the idea. So,
you're correct.
Boom.
But wait, I gotta say something about Logan. You said the right thing. I thought you were talking about a different part. You're correct. He had to take the girl to wherever.
Yeah, that little place.
That's the call to.
That was the call.
That's the thing that he was avoiding doing.
He was trying to refuse it because he said, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
And they said, come on, we'll do it, and we'll give you some money. He's like, okay, I'll do it.
Yes.
And by the end of the movie, anyway, we don't need to get.
Yeah,
the movie. But that's the idea. The refusal to call. If you watch any movie, look for it. It's like around the first 10 to 15% of the movie.
Yeah.
There's this point where something happens, a new opportunity. They're going to go into the new world, and then they'll say, no, I'm not going to do it. Watch it. You'll look for it. It'd be like, and piss off your significant other. Be like, oh, this is what they call the refusal to call.
Competing is that's a tough thing too. It's something that gnaws at you if you have a bad performance. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I feel like it's important to. I don't know. I don't compete a lot. It's important for me to compete, and I don't know. Sometimes I'm drawn to competition. It scares the fuck out of me sometimes. Mm-hmm. It makes me nervous, but
it's great.
It is.
You're alive, man.
Yeah, man.
I mean, how often do you feel it? How often do you feel that nervous in any other aspect of your life? How often do you, like, on a day where it literally puts you 100% in the present? Because when you're getting ready for that, when you're at the competition that day, there ain't a damn thing that matters but that competition. You're not worried about whatever you got going back at home. You're like, everything's about right in the present. It's a beautiful thing. But also it's a thing where it's a testing ground, man. It's a battle, and it's a beautiful thing to put yourself through, because again, we live a life of of lots of comfort and luxury, and it's a hell of a thing to test ourselves. And I know that I'm a fundamentally different person because of competition, because when I competed and got good at it and kept doing it, to every other aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Because then it was like, okay, like when, for instance, I did the gym business stuff, I was like, okay, so I'm doing this gym business stuff. This really trust myself. I don't really believe myself wholly. I'm nervous. I'm scared, just like I am in a competition. Well, just like in a competition, if I just do it, I'm probably going to do all right. So let's just go. Let's just do it. You know, I knew what it was like to lose and knew what it was like to win. And man, winning feels good.
It does.
And I'm willing to risk that feeling of loss for that feeling of win.
Yeah. It's a challenge, and then certain things will call to you to want to compete or not want to compete, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's everybody's journey's different or path. So I know we got into that too.
Yeah.
Fun little talk. But that's for another time. So Chewy, you said you've got your half guard thing that's out right now. You can tell people about that.
Yeah. I mean, like if you guys like, so I get questions about all this stuff that I have going on. So like, there's the if you look down in the links below and stuff, there's like my product page. I got those videos and stuff like that where people can get all the half guard stuff, which is just basically basically I take my best stuff and put it down. I'm getting ready to update some of those because as I develop new moves, I add new moves to the series. And so if you have it, you don't pay any extra. It's already there. But yeah, so nothing crazy.
We've got the Patreon stuff going on. We got some exclusive after the podcast extras that we like to put on there.
If you guys dig the podcast and you enjoy it, we have a Patreon just specifically for the podcast. It's patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You can go in there and it's cheap and you guys can get some extra content. Like if you like the rambles and you like the talks and stuff like that, we have those plus some other stuff that we've done with previous guests. So you can check it out.
Yep.
And obviously if you get into it, and you can turn it on or cancel it anytime. So
get you a shirt too for free.
Yeah.
So
I think we're gonna stop the shirts. Let's say next week.
All right.
So if they get it within the next week, they get a shirt. But afterwards, I'm gonna stop the shirts just because I'm gonna just have those for sale. So
yeah.
If they want a free shirt, they can sign up for next week. So
boom.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Awesome talking to you guys. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.